Hello, this is a story about wish fulfillment. This chap went into a bar and he sat down by this other man who was looking at the table, and on the table was this a sort of little man about a foot high, and he was playing a piano, and the chap who we'll call Jim was intrigued by this, so he asked the other chap, who we'll call Brian, what this was all about, and he said, well, this man was given to me by a genie that lives in the cellar below the pub, and so Jim said, oh, how did that come about? And Brian said, well, I asked for a wish. He gave me a wish, one wish, and this is what he provided. And anyway, Jim said, well, do you think you'll do that for me? And Brian said, well, yes, of course he will, yeah. We'll go down in the cellar now and talk to him. So they went down into the cellar, and there was an altar type a table with a sort of bottle on the top, and Brian went over to the bottle and he rubbed it, said something like Alakazam or something like that, and out popped this genie. Now Brian said to Jim, you can ask for your wish, but you've got to remember that the genie is nearly deaf. He's very hard of hearing, and you might have to shout. So Jim, considered this, and then the genie asked him. He said, "What is your wish?" And so Jim said, "I'd like 1,000 quid, but actually it was 1,000,000 quid. I'd like 1,000,000 quid, please." Well, anyway, the genie said, "What was that?" And Brian said to Jim, "You've got to speak louder. He's nearly deaf." So Jim said, "I want 1,000,000 quid, please." And the genie said, sorry, I can't hear. And Brian said, "Come on, you really have to shout." So Jim shouted really loud, "I want 1,000,000 quid, please." So anyway, the genie said, "Okay." He said, "If you go back upstairs, on the table where you're sitting will be your wish." So Jim and Brian got up and walked back up into the bar. And when they got there, Jim looked at the table, and on the table there were thousands and thousands, probably 1,000,000 tiny octopuses jumping around the table. And Jim said, "Well, what's this about? I asked for 1,000,000 quid." And Brian said, "Well, he's obviously hard of hearing, and he thought you said 1,000,000 quid." And Jim said, "Well, does this normally happen?" And Brian said, "Well, do you think I asked for a 12-inch pianist?" I'm sorry. I'm running off my tip.